Okay, we're back and I'm going to start on number 29, which 29 through 36 is basically working with your imaginary numbers or your radicals and division. So we're going to be doing, again, what we call rationalizing. Okay, and that's where we've got to get rid of either the imaginary or the radical in the denominator. So we're going to go ahead and get started on number 25 or 29. And in order to rationalize, what we say is if you have a plus bi, then you've got to multiply it by a minus bi. Okay, and what happens with that is when you're doing FOIL all the time, so I'm going to do first, and I'm going to do outside, inside, and last. Okay, but what's going to happen all the time is these two here will cancel out, and that's going to be the imaginary part of it, so that we're not going to have any imaginaries left, because over here on the other side we know that I squared is a -1, and so we can do a substitution into that. The same way, if it was a radical over on that side, we know that when we square a radical, the radical and the square cancel each other out. So either way, you're not going to have any imaginaries left, you're not going to have any radicals left. So on this one, what we're going to multiply both top and bottom is the 2 plus 8i. And again, you must do it in the numerator and the denominator. That just keeps it an equivalent fraction. So on the top, we're just going to distribute. So 16 plus 64i. Okay. In the denominator, we've got to FOIL. So first, okay, outside, inside, and the last. Okay, and so in the numerator, there's no like terms, so we can't do anything there. And in the denominator, again, you're going to see this plus 16i and the minus 16i, which cancel out. Okay, so we're going to have 4 minus 64i squared. And again, I told you over here, I squared is a -1. So our next step would be 4 minus 64 times a -1. Okay, so writing all steps here so you can see what's happening. So I'm going to get 4, and then when I do -64 times a -1, that's going to give me a positive 64. Looks like a lot of steps, but I'm showing every little bit. 68. Okay, now final step. When you get to here, you're almost done, but you always do need to look back at that triangle. So we talk about these three. Okay, and do you have anything common to 16, 64, and 68? And in this case, we can divide everything by 2. So that would be 8, 32, and 34. Okay, and whoops, it looks like I can do something more than that. Looks like we can divide by 4. So let's try 4 instead. Okay, and same way, if you don't do the biggest one, you can always go down. So 4 would be 16. And 4 into, and you can do your calculator with this, that would be, looks like 16i, and then 4 into 68, that looks like that will go 17 times. Okay, and now 17's prime, so we do know we're done. Okay, so again, I showed every little step possible, but basically the rule is, again, to multiply it by what we call its conjugate. Okay, so that we cancel out this middle piece of it. Okay, so that's 29. 30, we're going to do exactly the same thing. The only thing with this one is it's going to be a little bit longer because the denominator and the numerator will have to be FOILed. Okay? Now, we only do this conjugate if there is an I or a square root. I shouldn't put a 2 there, but a square root, and when we're dividing. That's the only time you're going to do the conjugate, okay? So we're going to go ahead and FOIL in the numerator. This one's going to be a little long, so I'm going to FOIL the numerator. So negative 16 plus 64i inside minus 10i, and then your last would be 40i squared. Okay, now you see that this one doesn't cancel out because these are not conjugates. Okay, it's only the denominator that are the conjugates. Next one, so in the denominator, I'm going to go ahead and FOIL that. So first, outside, inside, and the last. Okay, so let's now do some simplifying. So I'm going to combine like terms. So I am combining these. So that's going to give me a plus 54i. And I'm also going to substitute the negative 1 for the I squared, okay? So that's going to be 40 times a negative 1, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and come down and I'm going to finish the top out. So 16 plus 54i, and then that's minus 40. Okay, one more step. So negative 16, whoops, sorry. I'm going to put the 16 and the 40 together, do my like terms. So I'm going to get a negative 56 plus 54i. So now that's just working with the numerator. Okay, now I'm going to go back up and finish my denominator. So I'm going to work with this one here now. So I get 4. And again, remember, when I put these two like terms together, that's going to cancel. Minus 64 times a negative 1. So that would be 4 plus 64, which is 68. Again, now I'm going to do my triangle. Is there anything in those three that I can cancel? I know 2. Will 4 go into both? No, 4 won't go into both. So I'm just going to divide by 2. So that would be a negative 28 plus 27i, and that would be 34. Okay, and again, I do this in my head, but you're welcome at any time to do your calculator and plug all that stuff in. Okay. Okay, so that is your imaginary numbers on there. I was going to see if there was anything else with imaginary numbers before we go on, but I think that was the sum of it. Okay, so I'm going to call this one good, and then we'll do radicals in the next one.